Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. While you're trickling in, post in the chat, let us know where you are watching from, or a spooky fact about your hometown, because we're all about spooky facts here at our /software webinar. Awesome. We'll get started while folks are sort of popping in here. Hello, my name is Julia. Let me just share my screen. My name is Julia. I'm with Guusto. Very excited to be here with Alison today, talking about the pitfalls of buying HR software. We've got a really fun show for you today, so can't wait to get into it. Alison, over to you. Tell us a bit about who you are and why you're here.
It was a dark and stormy night. This wasn't a segue that Julie and I intended to happen like this, but I am here to talk about the pitfalls, the things that can and will and might go wrong when buying B2B HR tech, and the things that you can do to avoid them. I am a person who knows from experience as a person who worked in HR for many years, and then also now as the HR tech editor. I live and breathe this stuff, and we're hoping in the next, will we have an hour or so?
We've got an hour.
We've got an hour to help guide this audience through the process and to step over or around those pitfalls, which are very spooky.
Very spooky. Can and will go wrong is an ominous way to start, which is super fun.
We like to keep people a little bit scared.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you're all here for, right?
Yeah.
What I'll say is, folks, Alison is a wealth of knowledge on the topic of all things buying HR software, from vetting vendors to getting internal stakeholder buy-in. And so that said, there will be some things we'll probably glaze over, some things we'll go into in more detail, but we're watching the chat. So if if you've got a particular use case or there's something you hear that you want us to get into a little bit more, pop it down in the chat, and we'll make sure we pick Alison's brain on that particular thing that would be helpful. Okay, cool. So let's get started. Alison, first thing I want to hear from you is why is this even something we're talking about? Buying HR tech, is it easy, or is there lots of nuance?
There, in fact, is lots of nuance. I think that we're here. I think that the best way that we can spend this time, the most useful information that we can share today, starts with solidarity and understanding that this is actually a very difficult task for which most of us are underprepared. Even if we've done it before, even if, in the best case scenario, we've at least never bought this particular software before. And working against us essentially is a $1 million billion industry that tries to obscure the difference between information about software and advertising about software, right? Like, those lines are increasingly faint and it's just becoming much more difficult to do this, on top of the fact that we generally don't prepare people for how to buy B2B software. Like, I don't remember learning that except through experience, right? And there are a lot of things in the working world that it doesn't matter where you come from. You probably won't learn it until you do it. But I think that HR is a field that is particularly popular for people who come from many different backgrounds. And this is a huge benefit for us. We have a lot of wherewithal across the board, but this specifically is a really difficult problem that's very expensive. And if you do it right, probably people won't notice. And if you do it wrong, people are going to remember forever, and it's going to be very expensive.
That's I love that way of framing it, where it's there are some things that in your job in the first couple of weeks or the first couple of months you are taught. Not everything, for sure, but I would say this is definitely something that, the first time I went to sort of seek vendors for, our ATS, for example, the way we get candidates in the door at Guusto, it was like, okay, go vet ATSs and see what you think is best. And of course there was more support than that, but there wasn't sort of an outline or any sort of real teaching of these are the things you have to think about.
Of course.
And so to that point, like who is this webinar for? I mean, if you're here, don't leave, please. But like who do you see kind of being the people at the organization that are vetting and evaluating vendors?
We see people across the board. But there's no common job title. It's anything, except for IT, right? It's HR, fill in the blank person, but we're not IT. So this is for anybody who doesn't happen to be a B2B software purchasing expert who is being asked to buy HR tech, who wants, we can cover all kinds of things. Like we can access and we can provide you information about very specific things, or we can speak about it very generally. So really, like, no matter where this audience falls as far as expertise, there's content for you. And there's also content. This does actually seem pretty spooky, but really this fading line between what's information and what's advertisement, that's something that we have to keep on top of continually. So even if this is nothing but a refresher or even just a reminder of how to assess what you're seeing and what new technologies are assisting advertisers, like assisting vendors in painting a picture that is less true, this will be a useful place for you. Like I think we've all gotten used to, like, sales is in many ways like convincing you that your round hole is a square hole and that their product is just right for you. And it's just gotten so sophisticated and so difficult to tell how to do it, even where to start. And that's actually one of the things that I really like about how Select Software works, is that we have information, we have resources, we have like all of this wayfinding material, all this wayfinding content, everything between, we do reviews, obviously, we review software selectively, but then we also have just a methodology that will help guide people in a way. Like, I think we're almost like an information desk. Like if you've ever been to a foreign airport and you have a flight that you have to catch and you'll lose your job and people will shame you if you don't make it. Like SSR, Select Software Reviews, is in there to say, hey, we got you. You need this information quickly. You're in the wrong terminal, or whatever metaphor that could be.
Totally. Cool. Okay. Yeah. And it's so interesting. And maybe we'll get into this a little bit more when we talk about the vendor review portion of purchasing the software, but like salespeople are incredible. Like they are so trained at objection handling and how to, like you said, how to convince you, whether it's true or not, that like your problem, they can solve, they have a solution for. And whereas as a buyer, traditionally and without tools like Select Software, like we're not trained on how to really like push for what we're looking for. And so that's why I think your solution is so great and like really enables people to get what they actually need. Let's start. Like, let's get into some detail then. So how do you know when it's time to buy a software? As like, if you're in an organization and you're living in spreadsheets and Google Docs and all that kind of stuff, how do you know when it's time to stop doing something in-house and instead get a tool for it?
Yeah, the evolution in my mind goes from Post-it note to Google Sheets or Excel, and then finally to software. Of course, there's no hard and fast rule for when exactly the right time is. It will vary per company. But in my experience, what I know as a person who's been in HR and also as a person at Select Software Reviews, we have oftentimes when a company first brings on HR, like being the first HR person, usually it goes hand in hand with like, oh, yeah, we need HR, so we must need an HR person, and then we must need HR software. And so a lot of the time, like the first person that is the HR department will also be tasked with buying software. Or we see a lot too of change. Like we see a lot of this platform is not serving us and we have to get a new one. So the time to change, unfortunately, people often don't notice until it's just a little bit too late, which has cast off of implications down the road. It messes with integration, it messes with change management. So the best time is to do it early. The most
Before you
likely
think you need
time,
it.
yeah, before you really need it. The most likely time is after something has gone wrong, which is another spooky thing about buying HR tech. Is that it's probably going to be a difficult time, and you are the person that's in charge of making it better, while also doing something that you're not trained to do, with a time constraint and a limited budget. No problem.
Easy. Don't
No
worry,
problem.
Select Software is here.
Yeah.
Well, what about a scenario where you know it's time, as an HR practitioner of some sort, it's time, like you see this tool that could like solve all of your problems, but you're having a hard time getting leadership or sort of budget leadership to buy into why that's the case, or budget for it or something like that. How do you build your case?
That's a great question, and I think that that's a lot of what we could answer this question in 15 different ways for 15 standard HR scenarios, right? Like getting executive buy-in for fill in the blank could be the name of my first book, right? Like that is a major topic. Luckily with software, I think that it's a little bit more, it's easier to quantify that sort of thing. And I'm going to make a quantification now that's very, very lazy. But let's say there's two types of people in the world. There's HR type people, and then there's like MBA type people, right? Way oversimplified. But the language of the MBA type people is show me the research, show me the budget, show me the ROI, show me this, show me that. Those things are available, right? Like this is dots of evidence and information that you can pick up in the world. So my recommendation is if it is your job to make a case for an MBA type, because there's only two types of people. Of course. Make it numerical, make it empirical, and if you have to speak to the CFO, put yourself in their shoes, right? Like think of what do they want to see. And one of the things that HR folks are generally very skilled at is that sort of translation, right? So secretly there aren't two types of people, there are three. And HR people are in the middle, right? I know, I'm blowing minds here. But we're good translators, right? Like we can see that, like, let's say there's a need for rewards and recognition, for example. Like, you need that because you're the HR person and people are not okay. And, this is a concrete solution. Like, here's a software that can do this. Let's get this through. HR people, generally speaking, are very good at both seeing the problem because of, sensitivity, our abilities in compassion and communication, inherent trustworthiness, etc. We're also good at like turning that into a spreadsheet and speaking it into the language of the CFO or CEO.
Well, what about outcomes that are like harder to measure? The intangible employee experience, I think that's what's particularly challenging perhaps about HR software is that it might not just be time that you're saving. Like time is easier to measure. We find with recognition, like we've got lots of resources to sort of help HR leaders build that case. But what's your take on that? Like what, in speaking the language of a CFO, and I love that point, by the way, what are some metrics that HR leaders can use to help build their case?
Yeah, that's the title of my second book.
Oh, nice.
It's really hard. There are so many things that are actually not quantifiable in the human experience in general, that there's been the datafication, or I mean, in some people even say like the MBA-ification of the workplace has tasked HR with something that I think is actually not possible. It's not really possible to quantify everything. It's not really possible to be experts in all these fields, but it is the expectation that we will have both our finger on the pulse and like, the heart of the company. And that won't be in opposition to the black and white bottom line stuff. HR people are amazing. I'm just going to say that. Just to recognize the audience, HR people.
All three types of people are amazing.
All three types of people. We might identify a fourth by the end of
oh God,
this conversation, but
strap in, folks.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I didn't answer your question because I've written this a few times. Trying to measure certain things is like trying to use a ruler to measure something like justice, right? Like there are abstract things that are extremely human and only human and not quantifiable. But we're they're the HRBPs of the world, the data analysts of the world. Like we're really pushing hard into it. We're doing everything that we can. And one of the benefits of having all these wonderful salespeople around is that they will tell you exactly what their product does, and they want to give you the numbers that they have. They will have numbers for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I was at to your point of like some things aren't measurable. I was at a conference yesterday and I was listening to a panel of speakers talk about DEIB in the workplace and shared lots of really great insights. One thing they shared though was like, don't underestimate the power of like anecdotal evidence. Like anecdotal evidence is still a data point, and you can use other numbers to help tell your story. But like individual people's experiences are, some of the most stories are so powerful, right? So just like don't underestimate the importance of that.
Oh yeah, you really can't. You can't change a person's mind with data. Mm-hmm. Usually, I think we see that all over the world. But it is human resources type people are especially well equipped to be those translators and to tell the story, that comes from the people that are really sick and tired of the way the time checking app doesn't work. Like understanding that frustration and then translating it into a message that says people spend an average of 15 minutes shutting down and restarting this app because it's trash. Like we need a new one.
Totally. Okay. So just like that, you've got, stakeholder buy-in, let's say, you're heading on to sort of seeing what's out there. What are some common mistakes you see in like the vendor, checking out vendors in that phase of things? Maybe like getting your short list or
it occurs to me that calling them mistakes is not giving enough credit to the HR people that are doing it. I mean, we are up against millions of dollars worth of deception tactics. I'm not going to try to go conspiracy theory on this, but like, it's not mistakes, right? Like you're not bumbling into things. There are pitfalls, there are traps all around you. So I think that some of it, and this is completely understandable because again, HR and IT are actually separate things. It's understandable that an HR person wouldn't have an understanding of the entire technical HR ecosystem that's necessary in your specific company. Like, why would you? Why on earth would you understand that? Especially to the extent that you would need to find a software, to find a platform that people, that are trying to log their hours, that, they're going to like it as much as the people doing weird stuff. I mean, weird like math stuff in the accounting department, right? Like there's no way that you would know all those things. So I think that like just basic wayfinding is a place that we see a lot of people just get lost. And I think that there are a lot of companies that, I don't want to say prey on that, but that sort of ignorance about, is it a square or a round hole is an opportunity that unscrupulous companies can use to just tell you that their product is right. So I think not checking in at the information desk, so to speak, of your own company, or not finding a resource, a reliable resource online. Like I recognize I'm here with a company that does software reviews of HR tech, right? Like I didn't know that this kind of company I didn't know select software reviews type of company existed until a couple months before I joined. I didn't even know that this was an option. So, of course I'm biased for this option. We actually, speaking of the information desk right now of select software reviews is headed by my colleague, Zach Mason, who sometimes I don't know what to have for lunch, and I kind of want to talk to Zach Mason, right? Like, and he wouldn't
Can
just be
I
like,
can I get his contact info? Because I have
yeah,
the
no, I'll
same.
I'll drop it in the chat. I
Yeah,
will
perfect.
actually drop it in the chat. No, there's not like the unknown unknowns that you experience. Again, deceptive environment. You're not trained to do this. There's no way you're going to understand your entire company and all the like little micro bits within it. It's really good to get help on the ground level. Like we find a lot of people who aren't even sure what tech they should be buying. Like they'll
Yeah.
understand that they have a problem, but they don't know that there is, a single piece. There's a platform that actually connects those 5 things. So yeah, I mean, starting with the assumption that you don't know what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and then finding people like Zach who will help you decide what you want for lunch, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we don't have any like skin in the game, right? Like we don't have any incentive to be like, well, you definitely need to buy this particular software. Like that's not how this works. But it's really
You're kind of
helpful.
taking the salesification off of it and just like talking about the actual pros and cons of each software, right?
Yeah,
Like,
or even like a base level beneath that of like, oh, this is the problem that you're having. Like this is
yeah.
how a business works. Like, a very specific like, we are a manufacturing company in Southwest Georgia. We have 200 people and 500 remote workers, right? Like all the different configurations of any company type will require a different approach. And again, like it's unreasonable to expect that you as an HR practitioner, regardless of where you are in your tenure or where you are in your career, like there's just, you need help. So that's external help. I also recommend that people get a sense of what the internal landscape of your company looks like. And so don't assume that you know what's bugging accounting. Go talk to accounting. Your HR, they love you. Like they're happy to see you, right? Bring a bag of candy or whatever. And just getting a sense of what's going wrong. What are the pain points? Did I answer your question? I feel like I got excited about Zach Mason and then.
And honestly, sounds fair. I think what I'd love to get is like, I think you outlined the problem really, really well. Now let's say, I think like you don't know what you don't know. So you're kind of doing, you're looking at your internal stakeholders, you're figuring out what their problems are, what they need. How do you, so there's like, I don't know, 150 options for any particular tool you're looking at, say like a shift scheduling tool. How do you narrow it down to like, you don't have endless time to go and do demos. How do you narrow it down to, well, how many should you narrow it down to? How many demos should you do? Like what's the tangible kind of step there?
To go from I have no idea what I'm doing to I have five
People
possible
that I
vendors
want
on
to
my list.
check out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, well, so I definitely start with like assess your need, have a really clear picture of what your need is I think is the number one step one. Know that you're not a square hole or a round hole, or you know exactly what shape your hole is, and only buy software for that. And then from there, I'm of two minds here. I think that there's a case to be made for just like get on the phone, just start talking to people. Don't just stop at reading what the website or the review sites say about a piece of technology. If they don't offer a free demo, you need to see it. You have to see it. You have to see how it works, right? Like user interface is one of the top things that people complain about when it comes to software in general. But for some reason, HR Check specifically, he can just go horribly wrong. And if it's not a software that you want to use, and you'll know that intuitively when you see it working during the demo. And that part of a demo is extremely important. Like make sure that you have them walk you through the flows, the workflows. And from there, you don't want to spend the rest of the quarter doing demos with people. But I think between those two major steps, like it will take longer than you expect. Full stop. That's my fourth book. It will take longer than you expect to identify exactly what you need. And it will take longer than you expect to sort out the signal from the noise of what's out there. Because there are 150 companies that each of them are sure that they are the best for you in this need.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. It reminds me of in talent acquisition, where like it can feel frustrating how much time you spend like getting clear with the hiring manager and the interview panel on like, what do we need for this role? And I think, the instinct is like, post the role, like, let's get candidates rolling in so we can start interviewing. It's like, well, if we interview a whole bunch of candidates before we know what we're interviewing for, it's like, what a waste of time to just be like, well, no, they don't have this. It's like, well, we're not asking for that.
Yeah.
So that really resonates with me, of just like getting super, super clear with stakeholders what the problem is you're trying to solve. And then suddenly it's easy to narrow down 50 vendors to the 5 that offer, I don't know, a great mobile app or
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of we're lost. We're like, you driving and, oh gosh, we're lost. Let's start driving faster. No, stop driving. Stop driving for a minute. Figure out what direction you actually need to go in.
That's very funny. Yeah, I like that. And then demos. I mean, I kind of alluded to at the start, like these sales folks are sharp, right? Like they know how to handle your objections. They know how to tell you what they think you want to hear. And as somebody who might not have experience, like being in that environment, what are some pitfalls? And I love how you reframed mistakes to pitfalls, because they're intentionally designed to trap people. Yeah. So you're going into a demo for the first time, you're a first time buyer. What are a couple of things you really want to be thinking about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this is life advice. Like, they don't have to know that. Like, just show up everywhere like you've already done this 1,000 times, right? That's a
Fake
good
it till you make it.
Yeah. Or also not too. I think it depends a lot on your personal constitution and this person that you're speaking to. I sometimes find that saying, I have no idea what I'm doing can be very disarming, and then can sort of like open up truth. But organize your thoughts, and then you can organize your thoughts. Like, have questions, have a regular set of questions that you ask everybody. Keep methodical notes. Like we have, if you go to selectsoftwarereviews.com, like we have blogs, we have tons of information about like exactly how do you do this. If you're buying this type of software, what do you need to look for? How have we constructed our list of the top vendors? Like, what are the criteria we use? So I would say that, it's a mix of being prepared beforehand, be methodical from start to finish. And then also, just be aware of the intent of the person that you're speaking to. And I'm not bagging on salespeople. Like, I've done sales. Like, it's, and people believe in these products, right? Like, and I think that even salespeople, like, they are so excited by their company and like they know it and they love it. And there are a lot of really good products out there that I would be excited to share too. And so, like, I think that they're even sometimes a little bit blind to like seeing the difference between the square and the circle. I'm like, oh, we can make this work. So, but they're not going to be able to discern that for you. You have to discern that for you.
Do you have an example? I'm curious if you have like a story that comes to mind
about a salesperson trying to.
Yeah, I get it. And I agree, man. Like, I agree. It's their job. And it's so funny when I talk about Guusto, I'm like, oh, it's the best. Cause I really do believe that, but like,
we'll make you a sandwich.
Yeah. But it's just that's not what people, I mean, it helps to hear, but sometimes it's not going to matter.
Actually, this is not a specific story, but in general. So there's 2 types of software, Julia.
Okay. Here we go. Book number 5.
There's a big trend in HR tech, and the environment is sort of consolidating. There's constantly new small companies that do a niche thing. And then there's bigger companies generally that like sort of, that's a good feature, like, and they suck it up, right? And so it goes, things evolve from being standalone software, standalone companies into a feature within a larger company. A lot of the time, those larger software platforms, many of whom are great, a lot of the time they're a really bad fit for a smaller company that just happens to have some weird niche right? Like geolocation login for remote forestry. I just pulled all of those things out of the air, but like if your company needs something that like you need a lat long to log somebody's time, like a big software company, a big aggregator of companies is not going to be the right one for you. But the big aggregator, the larger companies are going to say, oh yeah, we do that, because 5 years ago they just bought forestrylocator.com app, and yeah, that's a functionality that's built in, but it's no longer relevant to that larger ecosystem. So I think that just a general like wide piece of advice is, again, like know what you need and really weigh the difference between the all-in-one and the specific needs that your company has.
Yeah, that's so that's so interesting, because it can be so tempting to be like, oh, this thing has payroll and HRIS and recognition and performance management, like too good to be true. But what's the reality you'll often see is that like they're probably not doing any of them really, really well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But, how do you make the argument that like, no, we need this performance management software because it actually does what we need.
Right.
We need the budget for it, even though, yeah, there is this one that does all of them, but
yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, then it gets even more complicated, because that one that's perfect for your niche need is also probably not going to scale very well. And then you're back at the like, okay, so do we need this all in one now? That like, we have 7,000 people at the company now. So it's
we find that sometimes it's a really great tool, but it might not play nicely with like it might not integrate well with your other tools, and then you're still kind of spending a bunch of time trying to get data to match up. And
you're pulling out your old spreadsheets and your old sticky notes.
You're kind of back where you started.
And it takes a while to know that too. Like it takes like the ramp up process takes a really long time. So
totally.
I feel this is getting pretty spooky because I keep saying, well, it's impossible.
You're like, darn. Well, what about, I think this is a good segue into, there are so many great tools out there. And like, yeah, I do want all of these things. And I want a pulse survey for engagement. And I want, pulse survey that looks at things from like a DE&I approach to get those insights that this one doesn't have. And like, there's so many solutions out there. The list keeps going and going. Tell me about how you know when to draw the line or sort of say no to like the really nice, pretty tool that you think is going to, solve everything.
So you mean like sort of the future, this will fix your future type of tool?
That, or just sort of, I don't know, always kind of wanting the next best thing, like that shiny object, that kind of thing.
Yeah, shiny object is a real problem. And fortunately, this is one of those things that we probably all have been trained for, right? Like as opposed to buying B2B software as an HR, not IT person. This is part of the world of illusion that we're living in, is that so many things will tell you that this is exactly what you need.
Yeah.
You don't even know it yet, but this is exactly what you need. And at the risk of saying the same thing over and over again, just knowing what you actually need, like having that resolve in you based on your confidence of your assessment of the situation of your own company, and then the input from, cross-functional, cross-department input, stakeholders, like you will know better than any company what you actually need.
Yeah, they're all advertising. Like, just you turn on the TV and it's sort of like, it's not even like, do you have this problem? It's, you have this problem.
You sure do. Yeah.
And don't worry, we can help. Right. And so, I think that's really helpful. And we see it with a lot of things, right? Like ground it back to your why. Why do you do things this way at your organization? Or why are you buying this software? And then like, you can really clarify all the noise by drawing it back to like,
Yeah.
what are the problems we're trying to solve exactly?
Yeah. And that, again, like there's that other like spiral of like, you were told by, or perhaps you were making this decision on your own, or perhaps you've been asked to find this software. It's possible that the person who told you to find this software doesn't actually know what is needed, right? Like there, especially in leadership, there can be, information silos. So like this person might not have good advice, right? So like the job becomes double extra hard, because not only is it trying to find the right software, it's also trying to find the courage to tell the person who told you to buy the software that this is actually not the right time to buy the software.
Totally. Yeah. Joel piped in about what we were sort of chatting about a few minutes ago of, do you want one tool that can do everything or a bunch of tools? He said it's very chicken or the egg. Do you want to get a tool and scale into it, or find a tool that you're bringing into your or find a tool that you're bringing in your spreadsheet scale that you're scaling into? Like, it's just sort of like, how do you know which direction you're going?
Yeah, no, it's really, 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 really hard. It's you can do like I'm here. We got Zach telling you what to have for lunch, how to buy software, but it's still really hard. There's no amount of preparation that would be too much. But on the bright side, though, I think of it this way too: like buying B2B software, the steps that you use to buy good HR tech are the same steps that you would use to buy any large purchase. Like I think that these are skills that are applicable to decision making across the board, right? And one of the things that we recommend, I came across this, and I forget if it was a review or a blog post or something, but we have a recommendation that you, as the buyer, as the decision maker and the buyer, of course, like you want to check the ROI, but you also want to like take good notes in the beginning so that you can watch yourself, or you can see how you made the decision. Like document your process for your own personal growth and development so that you can see what you could have done better next time. Because even if it's a success, even if it's like the best software anyone's ever bought for your company, there will be something in there that you can improve on.
That's cool. I really like that suggestion.
Yeah.
So, Alison, let's say you've gone through your demos, and because you were so good at knowing what problem you were trying to solve in the first place, and had all this buy-in off the jump, you've found sort of the software that you're wanting to buy. What's the contract phase look like? Like, how can somebody kind of successfully navigate themselves through it, whether they've done it 100 times or they've never done it before? Like, what are some things you're looking out for?
Yeah, I mean, it depends who you ask. I am of the opinion that everything's always negotiable. And I think especially for small businesses, there is a lot more flexibility. I think especially in America, like in the Western, quote unquote, Western world, we're not used to questioning the price or the terms of something. You should question the price and terms of stuff, though. Like it doesn't hurt to ask. You won't offend the salesperson that you're speaking to, right? Like they are designed in a lab to handle that kind of information, to handle that kind of conversation, to negotiate.
Yeah.
So definitely negotiate. Unfortunately, you have to read the contracts, which is absolutely nobody likes to read terms and conditions. But yeah, like be very thorough in your understanding of what it's like to enter in, what it's like to get out. Like I think it's always good to ask about what are the fail safes, like if this just doesn't work for you, because you and the salesperson can be in complete agreement that this is the right product for you. And then an unknown will come up, and all of a sudden this is exactly the wrong product for you. And being stuck with that, running out a year on a contract while you simultaneously have to find a new platform that does actually do what you want it to do is just a nightmare.
Totally. So, super time consuming. Yeah. And I love that, right? Like you're not being rude by asking for a discount. And my old manager, Noah, was really good at being like, just blame me. Just say that, your boss needs X, Y, Z, and he's not convinced. And I'm like, okay, thanks.
I or Noah too. That's great. Everyone on the audience today, Noah.
Yeah. I mean, they know. If they've been around, they know. Yeah. And so, yeah, like, not blaming it, but sort of using someone internal to just kind of like up your case on like, hey, listen, salesperson, like help me, like, this will really help me make my case, and this will really kind of, help seal the deal. What are some things that are negotiable though in your experience? Like, let's, if we were getting creative, obviously, other than sort of the subscription price or something of that
Sure.
nature, like what are some other things that could be negotiable?
Oh, I mean, it's top to bottom. Like I think every element of a contract, every bullet point that they're selling you is negotiable. So, the contract length, the price, if there's a graduation in the plan, in the payments, integration support, onboarding support, customer support, everything. Like I can't think of an example of something that's not negotiable. Maybe the software stack, things are bundled. And so what happens a lot is like, this one feature of a platform is something that you need, but 95% of it is not useful to you. Just by the nature of technology, you can't actually separate that.
Right.
It's not like how the cable companies used to be. Back in the day, you have like, I have a $500 per month cable bill because I watch 3 professional
categories.
Yeah, I'm into curling, right? Software can't be sort of split off like that. Like you have to buy the whole package.
Right. Yeah, that's helpful to know. Debunk this for me or confirm it for me. Sometimes, if I'm shopping for software, I feel like, well, we're just the little guys. Like we're not a huge company. Like it probably doesn't matter to them whether they get our business or not. So like, they're not going to give us a nice discount. Is that true? Or is it like, it's always worth asking, but, what's your take on that?
Don't work with companies that don't care about you. That's my take on that. Like if, it is so important to everybody needs to want you to succeed. Like everybody involved. If you don't get the sense that the company wants you to succeed, don't be afraid to just walk away, right? Like just instantly, just like, if you get the sense at all that they don't care, that you're just a little company, then that's the wrong company. I just saw in the chat, yes, I did say curling. Yes, I have watched some curling matches. I don't have cable. I've watched them live.
Oh, cool. I think there was some exciting curling on a few weekends ago up here in Canada, but I just see it on Twitter. I don't actually engage.
Yeah. I actually have a close friend who's Canadian, and she's an avid curler.
Oh, cool. Very nice. Your last point brought something to mind, but it might have escaped me with all the exciting curling talk, which is understandable. Okay, cool. So contract negotiation, everything's negotiable. Any last thoughts or any last kind of pitfalls on the contract sort of phase of things?
I think just to the point I just made about what's on paper is very important, but the human factors that lead to what's on paper are significant and negotiable. And it's just, this is true for all software, but the nature of human resources software is such that it has to be very personal, right? Like this isn't just data wrangling, right? Like this is like measuring justice with a ruler. It's not like that. Like this you have to be able to feel the presence of other people in this and feel other people caring how this goes. And that essentially, a contract is a very black and white thing, but it is the tangible evidence of a company understanding your needs and being willing to meet them. And there are a lot of them out there, right? For the landscape of HR tech is astonishing. And
totally.
You are not at want for choice, right? There's another, if that one doesn't want to work with you, find another one.
Yeah. I remembered my thought, which is so fun when that happens. What about the scenario where, or I guess, say you've kind of picked your top vendor, they really meet all your needs, they solve the problems that you're actually wanting to solve. what kind of vetting is out there? Like, say you don't have someone in your network who's used that tool that can kind of be like, oh yeah, no, like the backdoor reference. What might you as a buyer seek out to be like, okay, like, are they actually as good as they're saying they are? Is their customer service actually what they're saying? You know, those kinds of pieces.
Yeah, it's tough. This is one of those. Well, unfortunately, it's impossible. But yeah, because information and you know, we're living in a post-truth sort of world. But I work for a company, and I know for a fact that we legitimately review software, and we're not the only ones. I of course trust select software reviews and our lists more than others, because I, you know, as HR tech editor, like, I see how these things are made. I know how our criteria work. But I think that you need two things. You need your human intelligence. And in that, you need your ability to discern advertisement from information. And that again, that's getting harder and harder. You have to keep up with that. You have to keep being really good at that. And then I think that there is, and this is corroding a little bit, because it's hard to tell the difference between a real user-generated review and a not real user-generated review. But like, people are not afraid to review stuff. That's for sure.
That's true.
Right. And it's very hard to balance it. Like artificial intelligence is also starting to get really good at that. Like, it's a dynamic and changing landscape, but I would say definitely, you know, look for certain things in the reviews that you see. I always recommend that people look for reviews about the customer service, right? Because that is something that people will write about, whether it's bad or good, right? And I think customer support is a good litmus, because it's a combination of a bunch of factors that go together, right? Like, are they hiring people that are knowledgeable and good and the kind of people you want to speak to on their phone? And is their product good, right?
Yeah.
Like, how often do people access customer support? And what happens when they do?
Totally. It also speaks to, like, does this company care about me when I'm not in a buying cycle? Like, do they care about my success of, you know, the rollout of my program once I've already paid them, you know?
Yeah. Or do they have free information? I love a company that has resources. Just like, they're not trying to sell you anything. Like, they don't care where you came from, but like, they have a great article about this weird niche thing? Yes, they do. Totally. Also, always call Zach. You know, Zach is really a problem solver for all things.
Yeah, cool.
I should share his information. I do actually mean this about calling Zach. I've been talking all this mess about he'll buy you a sandwich, but I'm gonna try.
He'll also help you buy your software.
Yeah, well, number one, start with a sandwich, and then let me just find his info. I'll drop it in the chat.
Yeah, for sure. I've got a question from our lovely audience as well that I'm just gonna read before I speak out loud, so I'd avoid a blip like last time. Okay. Okay. Oh, Zach's info has been shared by Tyla, so we're all set there. So 2 questions from, I think they're both from Joel. So thank you, Joel. The first, tell us more about Select Software, how your company can help us find the software platform options and the rest of the purchase process. So maybe this is a time to plug the advisor program. And then the second program is, the first is from Kay, the second is from Joel. So thank you, Kay. And then Joel asks that, and I'd love to know about the costly mistakes of not using a platform. Right now we're doing comp planning in a spreadsheet, and I caught a mistake earlier this morning that I made, luckily before I sent it out, but still.
Yes. These are great questions.
Yeah.
How to select software reviews. We are a team of HR pros who focus exclusively on HR technology. Like, there's a lot of software review sites that do all of the software. We only do the HR software. And so everything you read was written by somebody who actually knows HR tech. And like, our focus is very precise and just HR tech. And we don't seek out companies to work with. They seek us out. We get flooded with companies that want to be, that want to appear on our site. And I think that our acceptance rate hovers around like 5%. Like, it takes a lot, because we put companies through their paces. We're very methodical. our editorial guidelines are strict, right? It's not like, give me $20, I'll put you on the homepage, right? Like we care about this. We want people to have access. We know this is difficult. It's very spooky. There's a lot working against HR people in terms of like not wasting money. And we just try to provide information across the board. So you can, the website we've got great blogs, we have great resources, we have great buyer guides for very specific types of software. So in that we'll have like a short list of companies, but then we also have like, here's how we decided what was the right software, or here's why we think these are the best. Not just because we think they're the best. It's like, this is, if this is an ATS, these are the top 5 things that we think that you should look for. Like in our experience, working with ATSs of all different kinds, these are the things that you really need. And the second question was about just Zach, sandwiches.
It was about the cost of not using a platform. So the potential cost of keeping something in-house, mistakes that might come as a result.
Yeah, that's a spooky nebula of like measuring justice with a ruler. It's time mostly, and then other things like frustration, right? Like whatever mistake comes up, like, oh man, I've made mistakes in payroll before because I was doing stuff for small companies by hand, and I still feel bad about that. Right? Like I'm still bearing the brunt of that mistake. So it can be, thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. It can be time. You can lose trust. You can lose motivation. Like it's so important for the HR part of the machine that is the company to run well. Like those are the really important things. Like they are the most important operational parts of the company, bar none, because people are the most important part of the company. So yeah, I mean, it can be devastating. And that's why, there's a whole industry for like change management, right? Like there are people who specialize in when things get screwed up because like it's devastating.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's a really sad thing to say, but it's really easy to devastate people.
Well, when it's around like their pay or their personhood, like these are like the really, the things you want to get right.
Yeah. It's the cost is incalculable, but it's a lot. It's probably a million billion.
Okay, good to know. Clocked.
Yeah.
And folks, feel free to pop your questions in the chat. We've seamlessly transitioned to kind of Q&A, portion of the show. So from Jasmine, Alison, what's your cost model to work with Select Software Reviews? How would that look?
That's easy. It's 1 million billion. No, it's 0. Call Zach. You can ask him about sandwiches for free.
Wow.
It is a free service that we offer to help people. The signal to noise ratio is untenable. It's unmanageable. And the advisor service is fairly new. It's a new thing that we're trying. And so far, people love it because just having that information desk it's just so helpful. And oftentimes, this is my experience in HR. Like I've worked for companies where I was like the other person. There's like 2 of us, and I worked for like 30,000 person companies, right? Like I have a huge amount of experience. But in some cases, just having another human to bounce ideas off of, just like the verbal processing, and you don't always have that. Like if you're HR, chances are pretty good that you might be the department one and team of everything, right? Like you might not have someone else to talk to just to understand and to get your bearings. And HR, I think as a community of professionals we've done a lot of things about that. I don't know if anyone loves Reddit as much as I do, but like Reddit, HR Reddit is huge. Like there are a lot of ways to communicate with other HR pros, but like Select Software Reviews, we're very specific about HR tech, about software buying for HR tech. And Zach is sitting there at the information desk for nothing.
Cool. That's awesome. So yes, call Zach, ask him what to have for lunch, ask him about software for free. That's awesome.
I just talked to him before this call, so he's on my mind. And I was
nice.
Maybe I'm thinking about lunch too, but like, yeah, he's a tremendous resource, as is the website, right? And it's, just the main point that I hope that we get across today is just do your research, ask for help. Don't do this alone. Don't do
It's
that.
hard. It's designed to be hard.
Yeah, and if you make a mistake, you are just doing what you're supposed to do. It's been designed to have you trip up. Like, it is intentionally confusing.
Totally. Yeah. I'm putting our goodbye slide up, but no need to rush out, folks. Alison, tell us. Oh, sorry, there was one more question from Kay. How do we access the resources you mentioned on your website? I wonder if Tyler or Huda can drop a link to those resources.
There's oftentimes I take notes as I'm doing this, but I just got too excited talking about curling and sandwiches and stuff. So I will send a follow-up email to our audience today with information.
Awesome.
About selectsoftwarereviews.com is our website. It's a pretty good place to start.
There you go. I too love websites with like tons of just free, helpful resources because or like vendors that provide that, because then it's just sort of like, oh, like they want to help me. They want me to succeed.
Yeah. That's all we want.
Yeah. And here's the formal plug for Zach. So selectsoftwarereviews.com/talk-to-advisor. Awesome. And then our last slide here. Guusto is an HR tech platform. We do employee recognition and rewards. We might not be a great fit for everybody, to Alison's point, but we're a particularly great fit for companies that have frontline segments as well as head office because of some of the methods that you can send and receive gifts. You don't need a company email to access rewards, that kind of good stuff. So if you're looking for sort of some of that ROI we were talking about, how to build your case to, leadership, check out this executive pitch kit here. Awesome. Alison, any last thoughts, any takeaways? If you were to kind of have people to leave with one thing, what would it be? Your Emmy award-winning moment.
Zach Mason. No, my final book will be a work about how incredibly difficult human resources is as a field, and we're under-resourced and overtasked, and I am constantly astonished as I work in this field and meet people that work in this field. And the key takeaway is that you are not alone. There is help and other people that care. The amazing thing about human resources is that everybody in this field cares about people, right? And that's not a given in all lines of work. So keep that in mind and remember how good it feels when you help somebody, right? Like, I think probably everybody in the audience has that feeling of like, yes, I got nothing from this except for the feeling of being helpful to somebody else.
Awesome. Cool. My biggest takeaway, I would say, is a bit more like, I don't know. The one thing that really stuck with me is like, get super, super clear on the problem you're trying to solve. It just like saves bundles and bundles of time later in the process when you're trying to do that while narrowing it down. So I love that. Get super clear from all the stakeholders on what it is why you're even looking. Get clear on your why.
That's tremendous advice. Yeah, you're right. That's the better thing.
I mean, it's your book. Awesome. Well, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Joel, Kay, thank you so much for your questions and participation. And we will catch you all at our next webinar. Take care, everyone.
Bye.